Something strange is happening across America's food industry. And this time, it is not just one restaurant having a bad year. From fast food drive-thrus to family restaurants, from pizza chains to grocery stores, some of the biggest names in food are suddenly shrinking. Locations that used to be busy every weekend are going dark. Dining rooms that once had waiting lists now sit half-empty. And stores that used to feel permanent in their neighborhoods are being quietly removed from the map. But this is not just a story about businesses closing buildings. It is a story about customers changing their habits. For years, people accepted higher prices, smaller portions, slower service, and food that did not always feel worth the money. But in 2026, that patience is running out. Families are eating out less. People are comparing restaurant prices to grocery bills, and even loyal customers are starting to ask a simple question: why am I paying this much? Today, we are looking at 12 big food chains closing locations in 2026. Some are closing a few underperforming stores, others are cutting hundreds, and a few have reached the point where almost the entire brand is being dismantled. Number 12. Applebee's. We begin with one of the most familiar names in American casual dining, Applebee's. For a long time, Applebee's felt like the default neighborhood restaurant. It was the place families went when nobody wanted to cook. It was where people ordered wings after a game, grabbed burgers after work, or met friends for cheap drinks and appetizers. The whole brand was built around being easy, affordable, and familiar. That was the magic of Applebee's. It was never trying to be fancy. It was trying to be comfortable. But in 2026, comfort alone is no longer enough. Applebee's has been closing selected locations across different states, and the deeper issue is not hard to understand. The casual dining category has become one of the hardest places to survive. Customers are squeezed from both sides. Fast food is faster. Local restaurants feel more special. And cooking at home is often much cheaper. Applebee's is caught in the middle. When people walk into a casual dining restaurant now, they are not just thinking about dinner, they are thinking about the total bill. They are looking at $15 appetizers, $18 burgers, drinks, tips, taxes, and wondering how a simple family meal suddenly became an expensive night out. That is the danger for Applebee's. The brand still has recognition, it still has history, it still has thousands of people who remember it fondly. But familiarity does not guarantee loyalty anymore. If customers feel like they are paying restaurant prices for food that tastes like it came from a freezer, they will stop coming back. And that is what makes these closures important. Applebee's is not disappearing overnight, but each closed location is a warning sign. The old neighborhood grill model is being tested harder than ever before. Number 11. Noodles Company. Next is Noodles Company, a fast casual chain that once looked like it had a very simple advantage. It was not burgers, it was not fried chicken, it was not pizza, it was noodles. Mac and cheese pasta bowls, Asian-style noodles, soups, salads, and comfort food served quickly. For a while, that idea made sense. Noodles Company felt different from the usual fast food routine. It gave customers something warm and filling without turning dinner into a full sit-down restaurant experience. But the fast casual world has become extremely crowded. Today, customers have endless options. Chipotle-style bowls, Mediterranean bowls, ramen shops, salad chains, chicken concepts, local takeout spots, and grocery store prepared meals are all fighting for the same customer. Noodles Company is no longer the unusual choice. It is one option in a very crowded lane. And in 2026, the company is closing dozens of restaurants. The reason is simple but painful. Some locations are no longer generating the kind of performance needed to justify staying open. When rent is high, labor is expensive, and customer traffic is unpredictable. A restaurant cannot survive on name recognition alone. The hardest part is that Noodles Company is the kind of place many people like in theory, but do not always crave enough to visit every week. That is a dangerous position. A burger chain can rely on habit. A coffee chain can rely on daily routine. A pizza chain can rely on group orders. But a noodle bowl chain has to constantly remind customers why they should choose it over everything else. And when customers are watching every dollar, that becomes much harder. So these closures are not just about bad locations. They are about the challenge of staying relevant in a fast casual market where everyone is trying to sell the same promise: quick, fresh, filling, and affordable. Noodles Company still has loyal fans, but in 2026 it is being forced to shrink down and focus on the restaurants that actually work. Number 10. Red Robin. Red Robin used to be one of the most joyful names in casual dining. the bright red sign, the yum slogan, the big burgers, the bottomless fries, the feeling that you could bring your kids, sit down, eat something fun, and not think too much about the cost. For many families, Red Robin was not just a burger restaurant. It was a celebration spot. It was where you went after a school event, after a baseball game, or on a weekend when the family wanted something casual, but still felt like going out. But that old formula has become much harder to maintain. Red Robin is considering closing dozens of underperforming locations over time, and the reason goes straight to the heart of casual dining. The brand was built on generosity, big burgers, endless fries, a fun atmosphere, a sense that customers were getting more than they paid for. But when prices rise and portions feel less special, that emotional promise starts to break. Today, a family dinner at a casual restaurant can easily feel like a major expense. Customers look at the bill and ask themselves whether the experience was truly worth it. If the service was slow, if the burger felt average, if the dining room felt tired, that customer may not return. That is the danger for Red Robin. It is not that people stopped liking burgers. Americans still love burgers. The problem is that burger competition is everywhere. Fast food sells burgers. Local restaurants sell better burgers. Grocery stores sell meal kits and frozen patties. And many customers realize they can make something pretty good at home for far less money. So Red Robin has to prove it is more than nostalgia. It has to prove that bottomless fries, a sit-down experience, and a family-friendly atmosphere are still worth paying for. These closures show just how difficult that has become. Red Robin is not just closing restaurants. It is fighting to keep the feeling that made people love it in the first place. Number 9. Red Lobster. Red Lobster is one of the most emotional names on this list, because for decades it meant something special. The fast just above. For many families, Red Lobster was the affordable seafood restaurant. It was where people went for birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, or a night out that felt just a little more expensive than usual. The Cheddar Bay biscuits became legendary. The lobster tanks, crab legs, shrimp platters, and dim dining rooms made the place feel like an event. But the Red Lobster story has become one of the clearest warnings in the restaurant industry. After bankruptcy, restructuring, and major closures, the chain is still closing selected locations in 2026. And the lesson is brutal. A restaurant can be famous and still be fragile. Red Lobster had years of pressure building behind the scenes: rising seafood costs, expensive leases, heavy debt, changing customer habits, and then came the endless shrimp problem, a promotion that became too generous at exactly the wrong time. Customers loved it. The business could not absorb it. That is the strange tragedy of Red Lobster. The chain became known for giving people more food, more biscuits, more shrimp, and more of that special night feeling. But when the economics changed, that generosity became harder to sustain. Today, Red Lobster is trying to rebuild. It is cutting back, refreshing the menu, and focusing on locations that can still make money. But every closure removes another piece of the brand's old identity. When a Red Lobster closes in a city, it is not just another restaurant shutting down. It is a memory disappearing. It is the place where someone had their first lobster tail, where a family celebrated a promotion, where kids filled up on biscuits before the entrees even arrived. Red Lobster may survive, but it is surviving as a smaller, leaner version of itself. And that is a very different thing from the seafood empire people remember. Number 8. Bahama Breeze. Bahama Breeze is a different kind of closure story. This was not just a restaurant chain. It was a mood. The palm trees, the island music, the tropical drinks, the jerk chicken, coconut shrimp, seafood, bright colors, and vacation feeling. Bahama Breeze was designed to make customers feel like they had escaped somewhere warmer, even if they were just eating dinner near a shopping mall. For almost 30 years, that concept had a clear identity. But in 2026, Darden made the decision to wind down Bahama Breeze. Half of the locations are set to close permanently, and the remaining locations are being converted into other Darden brands. That is a major signal, because Darden is not a weak restaurant company. This is the company behind massive names like Olive Garden, Longhorn Steakhouse, Yard House, and other successful brands. If Darden looks at Bahama Breeze and decides the brand is no longer a strategic priority, that says a lot about how difficult mid-sized restaurant concepts have become. Bahama Breeze had personality. It had a theme. It had a loyal customer base. But theme alone is not enough when the numbers do not work. The problem is that themed casual dining can become expensive to maintain. Large buildings, big menus, specialty drinks, Full-service labor, decor, music, atmosphere. All of it costs money, and customers today are ruthless about value. If they are going out, they want either a very affordable meal or a truly memorable experience. Anything in the middle is under pressure. That is where Bahama Breeze struggled. The brand gave people a vacation feeling, but vacations are luxuries. And when customers are cutting back, a tropical-themed dinner becomes easier to skip. So Bahama Breeze is becoming one of the clearer examples of 2026's food industry reset. Even a chain with a strong personality can disappear if the parent company decides the real estate is more valuable under another name. Number 7. Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box has always been one of the stranger success stories in fast food. It was late-night tacos, curly fries, burgers, breakfast, tiny tacos, chicken sandwiches, weird commercials, and a menu that seemed to throw everything at the wall at once. For a long time, that chaos was part of the appeal. Jack in the Box was not trying to be polished. It was trying to be convenient, funny, and available when other places were closed. But in 2026, the chain is going through a major cleanup. Jack in the Box announced a closure program targeting 150 to 200 underperforming restaurants, with many of those locations having been in the system for decades. That detail matters. Old restaurants can become expensive problems. They may sit in trade areas that are no longer growing. They may need major repairs. They may have outdated layouts, weaker traffic, and franchise economics that no longer make sense. For Jack in the Box, the issue is not just closing restaurants. It is simplifying the business. That is a major shift for a brand known for doing almost everything. Burgers, tacos, breakfast, late-night snacks, desserts, chicken, and value meals all competing for attention on one menu. But the fast food industry in 2026 rewards focus. Chick-fil-A focuses on chicken. Raising Cane's focuses on tenders. In-N-Out focuses on burgers. Even Taco Bell, despite having a big menu, is built around a very clear identity. Jack in the Box has the harder job of reminding people what it stands for. When customers are spending less, they do not want confusion. They want confidence. They want to know exactly what they are getting, how much it will cost, and whether it will be worth it. So Jack in the Box is shrinking the parts of the system that are not working. The old strategy was to be everywhere, open late, and sell almost everything. The new reality is harsher. A restaurant has to earn its place, and the weakest Jack in the Box locations are being removed from the map. Number 6. Papa John's. Papa John's is another brand caught in the brutal pizza wars. For years, pizza was one of the safest businesses in food. It was affordable, shareable, easy to deliver, and perfect for families, parties, and late nights. Papa John's built its identity around better ingredients and a slightly more premium feel than some of its rivals. But in 2026, even pizza is not safe. Papa John's plans to close hundreds of North American restaurants, with a large portion of those closures expected this year. The reason is not that people stopped eating pizza. The reason is that pizza has become one of the most competitive categories in the entire food industry. Domino's has spent years building a powerful delivery and digital ordering machine. Little Caesars owns the low-price quick pickup lane. Local pizza shops still have loyal customers. Frozen pizza has improved. Grocery stores sell take and bake options, and delivery apps have made every restaurant a competitor for pizza night. That leaves Papa John's in a difficult position. It cannot always win on price. It does not always win on convenience. And if customers do not feel a clear difference in quality, they start choosing whatever is cheaper or faster. The chain is closing restaurants that are not meeting expectations or do not have a clear path to sustainable improvement. That sounds corporate, but in plain language it means this. Some stores are no longer worth keeping open. This is what makes the Papa John's situation so important. The brand is not unknown. It is not small. It is not new. It has global recognition. But in 2026, recognition is not enough. Every location has to perform. Every franchise has to justify its costs. Every pizza order has to compete with dozens of other food options. Papa John's is not leaving the pizza business, but it is cutting away weaker locations to survive in a market where customers have more choices than ever. Number 5. Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut is one of the most nostalgic brands on this list. For millions of people, Pizza Hut was childhood. The red roof, the dine-in booths, the salad bar, the personal pan pizza, the Book It program, the smell of pan pizza coming out hot in that heavy black pan. At its peak, Pizza Hut was not just a pizza chain. It was the pizza chain. But the world changed. Pizza became delivery first, then digital first, then value first. Domino's rebuilt itself around speed, technology, and convenience. Little Caesars became the king of cheap, quick pizza. Meanwhile, Pizza Hut spent years trying to figure out whether it was a dine-in restaurant, a delivery chain, a nostalgia brand, or a modern fast food competitor. In 2026, Pizza Hut is closing around 250 underperforming U.S. locations. That number is huge, and it comes at a moment when the brand is going through a much bigger identity shift. Pizza Hut has been under strategic review, and its parent company has explored major changes to the brand's future. That tells you the problem is not just one bad quarter. It is a long-term question about what Pizza Hut is supposed to be now. The hardest part is that people still remember the old Pizza Hut fondly. But nostalgia does not automatically turn into sales. A customer may love the memory of Pizza Hut, but when Friday night comes, they open an app and choose whatever is cheaper, faster, or more convenient. That is the reality Pizza Hut is fighting. The dine-in era made Pizza Hut famous. The delivery era made the competition stronger, and the app era made loyalty weaker. So these closures are more than just underperforming stores being removed. They are part of a painful reinvention. Pizza Hut is trying to move forward without losing the emotional power of its past. But in 2026, the brand is learning that even legends can become vulnerable when the market moves faster than they do. Number 4. Wendy's. Wendy's is one of the biggest names in fast food, which makes its 2026 closure plan especially important. This is not a forgotten brand. This is not a small regional chain. This is Wendy's, the square burgers, the frosty, the chili, the spicy chicken sandwich, the red-haired mascot. For decades, Wendy's positioned itself as the fast food chain with fresher beef, better quality, and a little more personality than the big burger giants. But in 2026, Wendy's is closing hundreds of U.S. restaurants. The company expects to close between 5 and 6% of its U.S. footprint in the first half of the year. That could mean roughly 300 locations. The reason is simple. Some restaurants are underperforming and dragging down the system, but the bigger story is about fast food value. Customers are not as forgiving as they used to be. When fast food was clearly cheap, people accepted a lot. A long line, a messy bag, an average burger, a missing sauce. It was annoying, but at least the meal was inexpensive. Now the math feels different. A combo meal can cost as much as a casual restaurant lunch used to. A family fast food order can feel shockingly expensive. And when customers pay more, they expect more. That puts Wendy's in a difficult place. It has to compete with McDonald's on scale, Burger King on deals, Chick-fil-A on service, Taco Bell on value, and grocery stores on price. At the same time, it has to convince franchisees that each location can still make money. So Wendy's is pruning the system. The idea is that by closing weaker stores, the remaining restaurants can become healthier. But to customers, the visual impact is still powerful. A Wendy's that has been on the same corner for years suddenly shuts down. The sign comes down. The drive-through menu goes dark. Another familiar piece of the fast food landscape disappears. Wendy's is not going away, but it is being forced to admit something important. Even a giant fast food brand cannot afford to keep weak locations open forever. Number 3. Kroger. Kroger is different from most names on this list because it is not a restaurant. It is a grocery giant. And that makes its closures even more serious. Restaurants are optional. Grocery stores are essential. People may skip a burger chain, but they still need milk, eggs, meat, produce, prescriptions, and basic household goods. For many communities, Kroger is not just a store. It is part of daily life. But in 2026, Kroger is moving forward with a plan to close 60 underperforming stores over an 18-month period. The company has said these closures are part of a larger effort to improve performance and reinvest in the customer experience. But for shoppers, the impact can feel much more personal. When a grocery store closes, it changes a neighborhood. A family may have to drive farther. An elderly customer may lose the store closest to home. Workers lose a familiar job site. And in some areas, a closure can make access to fresh food more difficult. That is why Kroger's closures hit differently. They show that even essential food retail is under pressure. Grocery stores face massive costs: refrigeration, transportation, labor, theft prevention, rent, utilities, supply chain expenses. At the same time, customers are trading down, hunting for deals, using coupons, buying private label items, and cutting impulse purchases. A shopper who used to fill a cart without thinking now checks every price. They compare Kroger to Walmart, Aldi, Costco, dollar stores, and local markets. They may split their shopping across several places just to save money. That means even a giant like Kroger has to make hard choices. The company is not disappearing. It is still one of the most powerful grocery chains in America. But closing 60 stores is a reminder that scale does not protect every location. In 2026, even grocery stores have to prove they are profitable enough to survive. Number 2, On the Border. On the Border may be one of the most dramatic stories in food right now. This was once a familiar Tex-Mex chain with a clear identity. Fajitas sizzling at the table, chips and salsa, tacos, burritos, margaritas, and a casual atmosphere built around group dinners and weekend meals. For many customers, On the Border was not fancy. It was easy. It was familiar. It was the kind of place where people went with friends after work or with family on a Friday night. But the chain's recent history has been brutal. After bankruptcy and a rescue attempt, On the Border closed all of its company-owned U.S. restaurants in June 2026. Franchise locations may continue separately, but the corporate-owned side of the chain was shut down. That is not just trimming a few weak locations. That is a major operational retreat. The reason this story matters is that it shows how hard it is to revive a casual dining brand once the economics break. A new owner can change the menu. A company can promise a comeback. A brand can still have name recognition. But if the restaurants cannot make enough money, nostalgia will not save them. On the Border also shows the danger facing the entire casual dining middle class. Tex-Mex is still popular. Mexican food is still popular. Margaritas are still popular. But customers now have more choices than ever. Local Mexican restaurants, fast casual burrito chains, taco trucks, delivery apps, and grocery store meal kits all compete for the same dinner occasion. So a chain like On the Border has to offer something special enough to pull people in. And in 2026, the company-owned restaurants could not keep going. For customers, the closures feel sudden. One day the restaurant is there. The next day, the doors are locked. The chairs are stacked. And a goodbye message is posted online. On the Border is a warning sign. A brand can survive bankruptcy on paper and still struggle to survive in real life. Number 1. Smokey Bones. And at number 1, we have one of the clearest examples of how fast a food chain can disappear. Smokey Bones. This was a barbecue casual dining chain with a nearly 30-year history. Ribs, wings, brisket, pulled pork, burgers, beer, sports on TV, and the kind of smoky, heavy comfort food that once fit perfectly into the American casual dining boom. At one point, Smokey Bones had a much larger footprint and seemed like it could become a major national barbecue brand. But in April 2026, all remaining Smokey Bones locations ceased operations. That is the most final kind of closure. Not a few weak stores, not a slow reshuffling of the map, not a quiet lease expiration. All remaining locations closed. The Smokey Bones story is especially painful because barbecue is emotional food. It is connected to family, weekends, sports, road trips, and comfort. People do not just remember what they ate. They remember the smell, the sauce, the smoke, the ribs on the table, the messy fingers, and the feeling of eating something that felt generous. But barbecue restaurants are also difficult businesses. Meat is expensive. Labor is expensive. Large dining rooms are expensive. And when customers pull back from full-service dining, brands like Smokey Bones feel the pressure quickly. The chain's parent companies had already gone through bankruptcy filings and restructuring. Underperforming locations had closed before. But by April 2026, the remaining restaurants were no longer kept open. That makes Smokey Bones the clearest symbol of this entire list. Because when people think about food chains closing, they often imagine a slow decline. A few locations this year, a few next year, a gradual fade. But sometimes, the end happens all at once. Employees show up and find out the restaurant is done. Customers check online and see every location marked closed. A brand that once served communities across multiple states suddenly becomes a memory. And that is why Smokey Bones sits at number 1. It shows what can happen when the pressure becomes too much. Rising costs, shrinking traffic, debt, changing customer habits, and a casual dining model that no longer works the way it used to. The food industry is not just changing, it is being reset. And Smokey Bones is one of the clearest examples of what that reset looks like. The decline of these 12 food chains does not mean every brand on this list is disappearing completely. Some are still huge, some are restructuring, some are closing weak locations so the stronger ones can survive, and some may come back healthier after cutting stores that no longer work. But together, they tell a bigger story. In 2026, customers are no longer blindly loyal to famous food brands. They are loyal to value. If a restaurant raises prices, the food has to feel worth it. If a grocery store wants weekly shoppers, it has to compete on price and convenience. If a casual dining chain wants families to come back, the experience has to feel better than staying home. The old rules are gone. A famous sign is not enough. A nostalgic menu is not enough. A brand name people recognize is not enough. Customers are comparing everything now. Fast food versus grocery stores, delivery versus cooking at home, casual dining versus local restaurants, a $12 combo meal versus a bag of groceries. And when the value does not make sense, people walk away. That is why parking lots that used to be full are empty. That is why dining rooms that once felt alive are quiet. That is why chains that seemed permanent are closing locations across the country. The question is no longer whether customers remember these brands. The question is whether customers still believe they are worth the money. And in 2026, more and more people are deciding the answer is no. Leave a comment below and tell me which food chain closure surprised you the most. Have you seen any of these restaurants or grocery stores close near you? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.